So, let's recap what we learnt in the first two videos. Zeitgeist has shown that a couple of ancient deities were born around the winter solstice. He has failed to show that any were born of virgins. He has failed to show that any were announced by a star in the east, or visited by 3 kings or magi. He has failed to show that any had 12 disciples. He has failed to show that any were crucified. He has failed to show that any were buried for 3 days. And he has shown that 4 deities went through a kind of coming back to life, although that's hardly a shocking parallel for mythological characters. I would advise you to do as I have done and critically examine the sources provided. Read all the literature available and make your own informed judgment. If you look at the evidence, look how the evidence is presented, where it came from, what it says, who says it, then I'm sure you'll come to the same logical conclusion that I have. Zeitgeist's next canard illustrates my point. He goes through Jesus' life and claims that he was born on December 25th and visited by 3 kings or magi. How can anyone possibly think that Jesus was born on December 25th? It is a well-established fact that it was chosen at a later date to coincide with pagan festivals. There really is no way in getting around this. Likewise, the Bible never says that Jesus was visited by 3 kings. Zeitgeist goes on to offer an astrological interpretation of the Jesus story. He starts by saying that the star in the east is Sirius, which on December the 24th lines up with the 3 stars on Orion's belt, known today as they were known back then, the 3 kings. This in turn lines up with the sunrise on December 25th. Well, as we have seen, the birth date is irrelevant for Jesus, as is the 3 kings. So even if that title could be verified, it would be of no significance. The stars are certainly not known as the 3 kings today, and Zeitgeist's only source for this claim is Massey, who we've dealt with, and Dupuy, who writes, Orion has 3 beautiful stars towards the environment that are of 2nd magnitude, and put upright on line that are near to each other. The people they calls the 3 kings. However, predictably, he gives no source as to how he knows this, and like Massey, it is clear that it is just a conjecture. However, let's humour Zeitgeist. Here is a picture of Sirius and Orion above the sky of Jerusalem on December the 24th, 2007. As we can see, the 3 stars do seem to follow Sirius to the ground. However, to be more accurate, we should adjust the date for calendar shifts, making a more precise date January the 5th. But again, the stars do seem to follow Sirius. Let's try another date. How about February the 5th? Okay. How about March the 21st, the spring equinox? Okay, how about April 12th? By now you should understand what's going on. The fact is that whenever Sirius and Orion are in the sky, Orion's belt can always be seen to follow Sirius. There is absolutely nothing unique about December 24th. In fact, if we search the sky at the right time, we can replicate the position of stars Zeitgeist shows at any day when they are both in the sky. Furthermore, this December 24th picture is from the evening. As the night progresses, Orion moves further and further down towards the horizon, until by the early hours of the morning it can no longer be said to be pointing towards the ground. In fact, both Orion and Sirius have disappeared below the horizon hours before sunrise, and this is true for the assumed dates of Jesus' birth too, go look them up. Furthermore, it is actually Orion that rises first, followed by Sirius. So if we were to make an astrological interpretation, it would be that way around, as it is the 3 Orion stars that lead the procession. The entire thing is just ridiculous anyway. I mean, open your eyes, people. You are falling for the exact same tricks that you're supposed to be seeing through. Of course, this entire demonstration was unnecessary, considering Zeitgeist has failed to show that any ancient deity was adorned by 3 of anything, let alone kings, or the fact that Jesus was not born on December 25th. However, I felt the need to point out this terrible grasp of astronomy. Zeitgeist's attempt to link the constellation Virgo to the Virgin Mary is equally ridiculous. Firstly, Zeitgeist simply states that Mary is the constellation Virgo without any explanation, and secondly attempts to claim the constellation represents the altered M, when in fact it is simply meant to represent a woman holding a sheaf of wheat, as Zeitgeist simply states before. The absurdity is augmented when the film claims this is why many virgin mothers begin with the letter M, despite the fact that many of these cultures didn't even use the Roman alphabet. However, it seems that Zeitgeist has dropped this claim in the newest edition of the film, perhaps realizing how stupid it is. Zeitgeist furthermore claims that the constellation Virgo is known as the House of Bread, However, its citation to the Jesus mystery simply refers to Bethlehem being named the House of Bread due to its being shaded by a grove. This contradicts Zeitgeist's thesis that it is a reference to Virgo, which makes no sense as Bethlehem is a documented historical city mentioned several times in the Old Testament as the birthplace of King David. By establishing a Jewish pre-Christian connection with the town, attempts to link the constellation Virgo with Jesus become irrelevant, making the entire claim utterly without foundation. Zeitgeist's claim that the sun stops in the sky for 3 days on December 21st is also incorrect. The sun actually does change position slightly during those 3 days, although the filmmaker cleverly inserts the word perceivably to account for this. Zeitgeist also says that the sun lies in the vicinity of the Southern Cross at this time, and that represents a crucifix. Firstly, no other ancient deity was crucified other than Jesus, who probably was, although considering that crucifixion was one of the main sentences of death in the Roman Empire at the time, it's not exactly improbable. The main point of contention is that during this time the Southern Cross was only visible below 30 degrees north, and was not recorded by any Romans or Greeks during antiquity. Those who were able to view the Southern Cross, such as the Babylonians, simply considered it part of the constellation Centaurus, and attributed no importance to it. The Greek astronomer Ptolemy included it as part of Centaurus in his influential star map. The name itself is also relevant as it wasn't named, or even mapped as a separate asterism, until the 16th century at the earliest, when it had moved into the southern hemisphere. Zeitgeist quotes Massey as defending this foregone conclusion, but Massey offers no sources to show that Egyptians, or any Mediterranean culture, knew of the Southern Cross, or recognized its importance in any way. As for the Easter dates, once again this is simply another case of Christians aligning their festivals with pre-existing pagan festivals for pragmatic reasons. There is no conspiracy here. Now, Zeitgeist implies a connection between Jesus having 12 disciples and there being 12 signs of the zodiac. As with Bethlehem, the 12 disciples actually have an Old Testament link, with each disciple meant to represent a different tribe of Israel. Now, it is highly unlikely that there were 12 tribes of Israel, or even 12 disciples. While it is true that the number 12 has a special significance for the Jews, hence its repetition in the Bible, it was one of many numbers that was spiritually significant and thus repeated throughout the book, such as 3, 7, and 20. So while it is true that the Old Testament has certain numerological motifs, the New Testament simply draws upon these in examples such as the 12 disciples. There is no proof that number 12 was related to the zodiac. However, we know that it had some kind of spiritual meaning of completeness. Now, Zeitgeist's claim that the cross has to do with the zodiac is highly inaccurate, as the cross is one of the world's oldest symbols, dating back to the Neolithic era, and found in many cultures throughout the world, most of which had no discernible dying, rising god system. It was merely appropriated by Christianity because Jesus died on the cross. Therefore, Zeitgeist is simply trying to input teleology where none exists.